What does the life you want look like? I think that's a question that many of us face very early on, perhaps before we understand what the life we want looks like. I think it's implicit in, well, at least in my setting, how I interacted with the people around me. They would ask me those sorts of questions. What do you want your life to look like? What do you want? I mean, and the answer to that was always a focus on the aesthetics of what I wanted my life to look like. If I said success, it was, well, what would success look like? Would it mean having, a big house and a fast car and a big family and plenty of, well, an abundance of things? Maybe that's what I thought success looked like initially. But even as that paradigm shifted and I started to change what I thought success looked like and what the life I wanted looked like, there was still a focus on what it looked like. And I think where I'm at with it now is that I'm starting to break that link. It's not really what it looks like anymore. I'm not as concerned with the aesthetics of what my life should be. I think when you get faced with those questions really early on, you focus, undoubtedly, you put a lot of focus on what you think your life should look like, and you try to curate that image. And you see that a lot online with people's social media feeds. The life that they want is something they project to the world, that highlight reel, right? But as I said, that focus on what life should look like isn't really something that's discussed in and of itself. It's something that sits behind those surface level manifestations of that drive for placing an emphasis on certain aesthetics. So when you ask yourself, well, what does the life I want look like? You also need to ask yourself, well, is it really about what it looks like? And that's really, I guess, where I'm at. Because I thought my life should look a certain way. I thought at this point that being a professional in the way that I am would have a certain look to it, and that would bring a host of other things along with it, a lot of benefits. You would have all this prestige, all this acclaim. People would look at you differently if your life looked different. I think that reality, well, in fact, the lack of reality in that perhaps naive conception I had has all fallen away now, because I'm there. I'm at the points, those places that I'd set myself when I was so young. I'm at that. I'm at those looks. My life looks in every way that I had foreseen it or wanted it to be, as it could have been in order for me to be successful, right? So my life does look like all of those things. It looks like I live in a great location, in a great city, in a great country, around great people. I have a great job. And I'm so fortunate to say that. I don't mean to brag, but I have all of those things in terms of the aesthetic of it all. I have all of those things on paper, and I'm able to tell people those things as well. I'm able to, list them, perhaps not really in a CV setting, but more broadly than that. I'm able to project that image out to the world because I am now all those things that I set out to be. And the problem with that, well, it's not really a problem. It's kind of the natural conclusion of getting to that point, of getting to those goals, is that you start to wonder, well, looking beneath those aesthetics, is that place, is that look where I really want to be? Is that, at the end of the day, what I want my life to look like, feel like? Does it make me happy? So those questions, of course, can't be answered immediately, and you might spend your life trying to answer them. I know I certainly am now, for the first time, and I'm now 25, for the first time having to really grasp with those underlying concepts that perhaps have a lot more depth to it. So for example, when I said I'm a professional now, I am a lawyer now, that carries a certain weight for everyone around me, but it's nuance, it's fact that it's so new to me has all worn away. That title is just worn away. It's not really exciting. In the same way that, getting a increase in a paycheck, for example, isn't as exciting the fourth time you've received that monthly payment. It's just what your life is. The goalposts move. So in that scenario, I mean, you could quite contently live your life out in that aesthetic, in that look, the one that you've always been striving for. But I'm not like that. I need to look deeper and try to find a new way, something else to chase after or grow. I mean, maybe that's just because I'm young and I'm not used to settling and taking the foot off the gas, but that's another conversation. The point really is that those aesthetics that in a way controlled me, they weren't really controlling, they were more like motivators. Now that I have fulfilled all of them, and I am all of them, and everyone looks at me as if I am all of them, those factors have fallen away in terms of their importance. And now I look deeper. I look at how I feel in those environments. So, you might have a great house, let's say, but if you share that great house with someone you don't really get on with, then is it a great house? I mean, it might have a pool and, a 5-car garage, but if you don't enjoy living there, do you really have what you want? So this is a really crude example, but that aesthetic that you set yourself out to want to get suddenly isn't really the thing you wanted all along. Maybe it's that you wanted a really prestigious job, some title that people attach a lot of acclaim to, but when you get there, you realize that it's not the thing that you thought it was. Rightly or wrongly, maybe that was because you were influenced by things that you probably shouldn't have been influenced by when you came to making that decision of pursuing that goal, but it doesn't matter. You are where you are, and suddenly you might realize that, okay, well, I'm here, I'm everything that I set out to be, but now I don't feel that it's fulfilled me. So you look deeper. So breaking that link it feels like, in a way, a curse of getting the things that you want out of life, because when you have them all, then why would you seek something more? I mean, how ungrateful, but I can't help it if I feel that way, if I feel that I should chase for something again, if I feel like there's more to it, there's more to be won, there's more to life. I can't help feeling that way. And the frustration that comes from that is one really of timing, because you can make the argument that getting to that point is a privilege, and being there for everyone is part of discovering who you are. And discovering, I guess, is the journey of life. But the frustration that comes from that is that if I just ask myself those questions before I sought out on whatever set of aesthetic goals I had when I was younger, if I just asked the deeper questions of what fulfilled me, of what made me happy, of what motivated me in a long-term, not just a fad, but a long-term setting, I might have avoided spending however much time, money, and attention on something that at the end of the day didn't, in and of itself, make me happy. And there's a frustration there, of course. Maybe it's inevitable, but I think that's what I'm trying to get across, is that asking yourself those questions early, even if they're difficult, gets you to where you might not even know you want to be sooner. And there'll be no gold medal or prize. No one will pat you on the back for that, but you will be happier if you find your way to where you actually want to be, outside of the very narrow confines of what you think your life should look like. So just ask. And maybe you're in a situation where you ask and the answer is, well, I don't know. And that's fair enough, because most of the time I don't know. You know, if you were to drill it down to like, what do you want your diet to be like? I don't really know that question. And to be honest, I think it's just a bit too serious to try and prescribe what your diet should look like for the ideal life. I'm not advocating for that granularization of your life. No. The answer really is to just try, is to try new things, experience new things, and put yourself, as I keep advocating for in these videos, in situations that make you slightly uncomfortable, that are perhaps outside of your standard day-to-day life. So you ask yourself, and if you ask yourself and the answer is I don't know, then just go and try stuff. You know, just put yourself out there. And it might take 4 years, but you might find something that actually makes you want to get out of bed, that doesn't feel like work, it doesn't feel like an obligation. And then you've won. So ask and try, is what I'm trying to say.